and taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.
Welcome to Great Taste, presented by Fairfield Media Center. We're at Green Building Supply, first Tuesday of every month. I'm Steve Bosch, your host. So I am joined by two wonderful young cooks. On my left, we have Elisabetta. The grandmother's looking, making sure I pronounce things correctly. And on my right is Carlotta. And they are from Milano and living in Fairfield, Iowa at the present time. Elisabetta and Carlotta Forte Calati. And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Six, we can say. Well,
6 total.
yeah, not counting me and my sister.
Right. And there's one new arrival, right?
Yes. His name is Alberto, and he was born the 1st of March, so he's very new for us.
That's his. Too bad he's not here to check out what you guys are going to be doing, but I suppose he is a little bit young at the present time, right? So I'm really thrilled to have you guys on here because you are going to make actually a classic dish. Were you born in Milano?
Yes, I were born in Milano, and I'm gonna cook risotto alla milanese, and it's a typical, it's a classic Italian food, and it's kind of long to make, but it's really good.
Yes, it's a classic Italian risotto and probably the most famous risotto alla milanese. And many people might not realize that risotto, or cooked rice actually, is part of the northern tradition of Italian cooking, and rice became a very important or integral part of the crop structure in Italy. It was introduced by the Saracens, I think it was, quite a few centuries ago, and the Moors and the Saracens actually. And the northern region of Italy, I think it was actually originally introduced in Sicilia, which is kind of interesting. But now it's the north of Italy that is the most famous rice-growing region, and there are many varieties of rice that are grown in the north of Italy. And probably in the States, what people are most familiar with is arborio, that particular rice. And actually locally, it's the only one that you can buy for risotto. You need a short grain rice. You can't use basmati, for example. You have to use a rice that has a really good integrity to it, and yet the starch is going to break down during the cooking process and still allow, when you're finished, for a really nice bite as opposed to mush. So that's what you're looking for. And frankly, just for you all to get a little bit of rice, or we'll say risotto rice 101, arborio is not the rice of choice in my kitchen, and it's not the rice of choice in your kitchen, I don't think. No. And there's lots. I mean, I've used Risobaldo is another one that I think it even grows in Lombardia, which is where Milano is. And so there are many different varieties that you can use. But I think in general, people would say that the two varieties that are most highly thought of are Violone Nano and Carnaroli. And so we're going to use Carnaroli, but we're going to actually do one step further than that. And that is that there are in some, we'll say, agricultural traditions, it's thought that the best grains to use are grains that are actually a little bit aged. So there's a very famous producer of Carnaroli, for example, in I can't remember the name of the town right now, but his brand is Acquerello, and he even has rice that he ages up to 5 years. And this particular Azienda Agricola that Zaccaria, which is where the rice comes from. Where is that rice? Oh, it's right here. The rice comes from that we're going to use. This has been aged for over a year. So So, and that's important, as I said, in some agricultural traditions. In India, for example, it's another place where they think that grains need to be at least a year old in order for them to have their maximum health benefits. So we're happy to utilize this rice. And I suggest to you that if you have the opportunity to seek out other varieties of rice other than arborio, do it. Because one of actually the most practical aspect of using a rice like carnaroli is that when it comes time for seconds, then the grains of rice are still really good to eat. They don't become mushy. Like arborio doesn't quite have the same integrity. And my experience with it is that unless you catch it at the perfect time and you eat immediately, it's just not, it's just not as good. But carnaroli will maintain that integrity, and it's really good for seconds even. So it's great. I love risotto, so I'm so happy that you're making this. So who's going to start? Because also, I guess, Elisabetta, you should say what you're going to cook.
I'm going to make a traditional cake that's called torta margherita. So in English it would be...
margarita cake.
Yeah. And
most people are familiar with margarita pizza, but this is margarita cake.
Yeah, yeah. And it's going to be very easy to make, so... I mean, I'm very used on making cake, and in fact, I want to be a baker when I'm going to be older. And I think today is a very good opportunity to kind of show how I do it and show how I use my work.
Okay, well that's awesome. So now, how old are you?
13.
13. And how old are you?
11.
11. Okay, and you have a little sister here, Angelica. How old are you, Angelica? 7.5. Okay, and who else is there besides Alberto? Where do the rest of the ages come in?
There's Margarita.
Margarita, and Margarita is how old?
4.
She's 4, and Michele is what? Is he 10? 10? That's what I thought. I thought he was 10. He'd want to come tonight? Huh. But you know what? You're not taking any risotto home for him. That's for sure. We're going to eat it all, right? All right. So who needs to go first in terms of making this work time-wise? Do you need to make the cake and get it in the oven first? Or do we need to start the risotto first and then go to the cake? How should we do this?
I think we can start by my sister. She's going to take much more time than I will do.
Okay. All right. Okay, so tell us what you're going to do.
What do I have to do?
You have to tell us what the steps are. So how are we going to start? Because so I have to tell you something. This isn't on. And okay. So we have to start from the very beginning, which they say is a very good place to start.
Okay, so now I'm going to put the butter with the onion in the pan. And the onion have to be transparent. Mm-hmm. And then when it starts to be transparent, then you add the sugar, and you're the rice have to change color, and you need to see the middle of the rice that is getting more darker.
Okay, so first we're gonna put in some butter, and then we're gonna add shallot. We're using shallot, but you can use white onion, yellow onion, red onion. If you want, you can use any kind of onion that you like. But I happen to love shallot, so we're going to Frenchify it a little bit. But that's okay. And so then after it begins to get a little transparent, what are you going to add?
The rice.
Right. Because I think you said sugar, so I think that was... And I think people were kind of their hearts stopped. They were a little concerned, at that point. That's all right. I just wanted to clarify it. It's fine. You're not turning red, which is good. Okay, so then you're going to add the rice. And I loved your description, so please go through that one more time, because it's something that I want to listen to, because I want to make sure that I understand it correctly, too.
Okay, so we add the rice, and then you have to mix everything, and the rice have to change color. The middle of the rice have to be a little bit white, darker, darker white. Yeah.
A little darker white. It has to take on a little color because you're toasting it actually, is what you're doing. But you have to be really careful, I know, because you don't want to, you're just getting the shallot to where it begins to color a little bit. You're not trying to, caramelize it. Same with the rice. So it's a process that requires your attention. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love cooking risotto, because it's the type of dish that's not only a great comfort food, but the reason that it's so comforting is because the cook, you, me, whomever, puts so much attention into it and spends so much time with it. As you said, they have to stir it, right? And by the time it's over, it has so much of your attention in it. It has so much love and, your physicality as part of it and your soul as part of it. It's a very esoteric dish, I think. I love. Do you know what that means?
No.
Anyway, it's one of my favorite dishes always. So get started. Go for it.
You actually have to be careful because you can't let the onion fry. Wait, how do you call it?
Caramelize.
No.
You can't let it get too dark.
Kind of onion.
Oh, shallot.
Shell. You can't let the shell fry.
Right. You cannot let it fry. And the same, you're using butter, so you have to be a little bit more attentive to that too. You have to keep the fire fairly low so that you're not going to get it to, just want to be careful with it. Okay, so go for it, and we'll watch you. And meantime, while you do it, do you want to have something else you want to tell us right now?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna move a little bit out of the way so I can let you go do your thing, and then we'll pick you back up in just a minute. Okay? All right. Sounds good. So I can't remember when the first time I had risotto, but I can remember that there are several risotti experiences that I've had over the years that stand out to me. And since I do this show and talk, that's what I'm supposed to do, fill up the time, I'm going to tell you some of those things because they're just wonderful. Some of those food experiences that are just absolutely alive in my psyche. And one of them was, and you think about this, it's really cool, is that the risotti change based on where that risotto is being made. So in other words, it's really found in common all over the north of Italy. But on the coast, Liguria, and also in the Veneto, like in Venice, for example, what do you think you find most common in terms of the type of risotto? Seafood, right? Exactly, seafood risotto. That's what you're going to find. So if you go to Venice, you're going to want to order seafood risotto. If you go to coastal Liguria, you're going to want to order seafood risotto. So one day, this young man took me to this little trattoria in Liguria in this little sea town, and I actually went to the restaurant. When I came back, he'd already ordered, and he ordered seafood risotto, and it was extraordinary. I mean, it was really just a wonderful experience. And that also reminds me that in general, I wouldn't advise ordering risotto in any region of Italy other than the north. Now, does that mean, I've had risotto in Florence. It wasn't very good, honestly. And the restaurant was good. But I just think that when a dish is part of a particular culture, it's great. Like risotto alla milanese, you're going to order it in Lombardia, right? There's no reason to order it in Sicily. That doesn't make any sense. However, if the cook happens to be from Lombardia and he's cooking or she's cooking in Sicily, it's okay. That's a good idea because because recently we were in Torino and there was a chef in the kitchen from Sicily, an absolutely extraordinary caponata in Torino, which is not something that you would normally find because obviously that's not where caponata comes from. So I'm just talking in general. In general, I would order risotto in a place in the north of Italy where they grow the rice and it's indigenous to the area, and so it's a dish that's part of that region's culture. That's all. And you can take that and expand it to any other kind of food. So just see where it's from. And I was listening to this explanation of food that was given by this Lydia Bastianich, who some of you may have some of her cookbooks or have been to a restaurant for Lydia in New York City. And one of the things that she said that really struck me is that if you pay close enough attention, you can tell a lot about a country or a region or a city by the ingredients that are in the dish. So is the cheese, for example, cow cheese, sheep cheese, or is it some other animal, goat cheese? Is the just all kinds of things. Like, is it rice? Is it corn? Is it pasta, for example, in Italy? Those kinds of things. Just looking at it, and you can actually get a mental picture of the topography of the land and the type of people that are behind the dish. So anyway, risotto is one of those dishes. I think it's got a lot of romance behind it, and several other things that the experiences I had, like in Piemonte, we went to this agriturismo in Piemonte and had this amazing risotto that had Barolo. It was cooked with Barolo. Barolo is a wine of the Piemonte region. So they made, this risotto with Barolo as part of one of the major ingredients. It was outrageous. I mean, it was just absolutely fantastic. But it's something that they did because that's how they prepare it, regularly. And so it fit perfectly within that particular format. In the States, once I went to this risotto festival that was in New York at this restaurant called San Domenico in the city. It was at Central Park South, I think. And the owner of San Domenico, which doesn't exist anymore, was a guy named Tony May, who was a very famous New York restaurateur. And he had a chef at the time. Her name was Odette Fada, I believe was her name. And she had a risotto festival in February. And she would use all different kinds of rice and make all different kinds of risotti. And it was really fun. And I had a pear and gorgonzola risotto. Wow. It was so rich. It was like you couldn't eat very much of it because it was just so amazingly rich. Is this boring?
What?
Is this boring or not?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking. I want everybody to be entertained, and I'm basically just reliving different dishes that I've eaten. So just two more really quick. Once on the show, my co-host for many years, Kathy Dubois, made a mushroom risotto when we were cooking at the KRUU studio. It was absolutely outrageous. We just talked about it again last week. It was one of the best risotti I've ever eaten. And one last one or two actually, to show how simple the dish is. If at Vetri in Philadelphia, one night I had a risotto that was just totally plain. It was just the rice cooked in broth with Parmigiano and a little bit of sofrito, the carrot and a little carrot and a little onion, and then on top was chopped fresh parsley, and it was absolutely incredible. It was just so plain and simple and like, wow, amazing. And then there was a French type version. I was at a Mediterranean restaurant. I'm pretty sure it's still there in New York right now. Picheline. Terrence Brennan was the executive. He's the owner, and he was the executive chef there at the time. And it was a black truffle risotto, and it was in the middle of winter. It was February, so it was really cold. And they brought it to the table in this copper pot. So it was very nice presentation, and it was absolutely crazy. Anybody have a risotto that takes up that kind of memory space in their mind that they remember? Yeah.
I mean, in this place, when we always pretty much ate risotto, we had this risotto called risotto al nero di seppia. So the black of the seaweed in the risotto, and you can also have like the pasta made out of that, and it's really, really good. I mean,
it was squid ink, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was black, and then there is also another one with raspberry.
Whoa. Raspberry?
And strawberries.
Whoa, so it was like a dessert risotto?
Yeah, but it's like very, very good.
And where was that? Was that
in Milan?
In Milan, huh? But did they serve it as a primo, or was it served as dessert?
Well, not a primo. Just like in the middle, you had normal. Yeah.
Really? So it was raspberry and strawberry. Yeah. Was there cheese in it or not?
Well, in pretty much every risotto there is Parmesan. So yeah.
There was. Okay. Fascinating. That's very interesting. Was your grandmother there? No, she wasn't
The other
there. Oh, okay. Non c'è problema. But do you understand what we're saying? Oh, it's great. Okay. Their Nona, their grandmother's in the audience, so that's right. All right. So you're busy. Oh, that looks so. Oh, Jason, we need to look at that. That's beautiful. That's gorgeous, huh? Yeah, that is really pretty. Slow cooking. I love that. So do you think it's got some color now?
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, I think the butter, the onion. How do you call it?
The shallot.
The
Shallot.
shallot.
Or if you're English, shallot, I think. No, shallot. Shallot. No, just shallot. I swear I've heard them pronounce it differently there. Okay, never mind. It's a shallot. It's a shallot. The Lady of Shalott. Right. That's right. Sorry, wrong. Right.
So actually, you see different onions, but this kind of onion, I never use it, so I don't know actually if this is transparent.
I'm going to tell you, it's looking good. I'd give it another minute or so, maybe 2 minutes. It's looking really good, though. It's really looking nice. It's going to add a great flavor base, to this. Okay. So, do you need to get started, or are you okay so far?
Maybe I can get started.
Yep.
I think.
Okay. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to do?
Okay. Steps, you mean? Okay. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take the 3 eggs. Well, I have 10 eggs over here, and I'm gonna.
So I think everybody's worried now. Are there going to be 10 eggs in this cake? It's a classic margarita torta, and it's going to have 10 eggs in it.
I know. So, I'm just gonna use 3 now, a whole entire egg.
Okay, so 3 eggs go in at the beginning, huh? And oh, I like this. This is nice.
Tiny one.
Yeah, a little lemon zester. That's cute. That's very cute. Okay. So, and how many total eggs are going to go in this thing? 10?
10.
Okay. So, sure it's not an omelet as opposed to a cake.
There.
Okay. I see. She's concentrating. She's focused. She's focused on what she's doing. Okay.
So then I'm gonna take the electric mixer.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Right. And you're going to just beat the eggs?
Yeah, until they're kind of mixed, and then little by little, I'm gonna start adding the sugar. You can.
Okay, I'm going to move back over here a little bit so we don't freak out the sound quality, but you're going to start adding sugar after that's the next ingredient that's going to go in. And so you're beating it on high right now, right? Pretty much? No? 2. Okay. All right. So that's good. All right. So that's very interesting. Now, yes.
Yes. So I'm gonna add the rice because I still don't know if that, but I see that the butter is almost frying. How do you say?
Well, it's almost getting to the point where it's going to start to get a little bit of it's bubbling, and it's going to get a little foam, and we don't really want that. We don't want it to get that hot. So
I'm gonna add.
Okay, so you're going to add the rice. Okay, so you're going to add the rice, and it's a short grain rice, as we talked about, and it's beautiful rice. Yes. The rice is dry. Yes, it's. This is not a rice that you need to wash, and you shouldn't wash it ahead of time, okay? So, and now what she's going to do is, you can see, she's stirring the rice in because you want to toast it. So, it's going to take a little bit of time to do that. And then there's going to be a whole process, because the first thing that's going to happen after you get it toasted is you're going to add white wine, right?
Yeah. I'm going to add white wine. So, it's to... get the, how do you say, grasso?
Fat,
away, burn, how do you say?
Keep the fat from burning?
Nope.
No?
No,
To seal the rice a little bit?
Yeah, and to give a little bit of taste.
And flavor, right. Okay, so you're adding another flavor layer. So you've got, the first layer is called the sofrito. That's the flavor layer, right? And you're using basically shallot for that. People do, in risotto alla milanese, is it more common to just use the onion or the shallot rather than carrot and a little carrot and celery and garlic?
This is like, those steps are like the basic steps you need to do. And then when I'm gonna add the wine, you can like I'm gonna put white wine, but you can like choose to put like red wine or carrots or some vegetables and everything. Like you can choose to add, but only like after this step.
Okay, you can add other things, but in risotto alla milanese, you wouldn't add anything else, right? No.
White wine.
Right, okay. And then, of course, the key ingredient is?
Saffron.
And I was told not to bring any because you were going to bring Italian saffron, right?
Yeah, the one, since my grandma came, she brought some saffron and broth cubes from Italy. Yeah.
Okay.
So like you see, it's getting darker, like it's getting transparent, and the whole it's getting darker, like darker white, darker. Yeah, and so in this case, we just add the wine.
Okay.
And we put.
And you're going to turn it up.
Yeah. Turn the burner on. Like.
Okay, you're going to turn the burner up to a medium high a little bit, right? And you're adding the. Now you're not adding very much wine. I notice you can add more if you like.
I'm just adding this.
That's enough, huh?
Yeah, that's actually a lot.
It's a lot. Okay. Okay, so the wine's in, and some nice. I'd say just some. This is an Italian wine. This happens to be an organic Italian wine that we have, that we can put in here, and it's good to have. You can use, any kind of. I like to use generally a more dry type of wine, but it doesn't really matter as much. It's just adds a nice little flavor base to this whole thing. So you're stirring it in, and you're going to turn it up. So now you've turned it up to medium high, and soon, what's going to happen after that?
So soon, since I turn
the burner up.
The wine is gonna get the flavor in the rice, and the rest it's gonna vaporize.
It's going to cook up. It's going to. The rice is going to absorb the wine. Is what's going to happen.
Yeah, but with the heat, the wine, most of the wine is gonna
cook away, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, do you think we better turn this up a little bit or not? Or are we good with that?
We're good.
Okay, so this is the broth. So okay, we're going to get back. Hold on. What are you doing?
I'm putting the vanilla bean inside of it.
Okay, so you used the actual vanilla bean. What did you do? Show us a little bit.
First of all, I cut it in half.
Yeah, there you go.
I cut it in half. And then what I did, I usually use the back of it, but this is a strange knife, so I can't. And what I do is I open it, open on the side, and then I scrape.
So you're scraping all of the wonderful, all the vanilla bean lusciousness out of the vanilla bean, right?
We don't need to go too much in, because then we would get the sour of the vanilla bean, and so it would taste strange, have a strange taste to it, and so yeah.
We're just getting the top layer essentially, huh? Okay, sounds great. And did we miss something else, or what are you doing? Okay. But that's good. I'm glad you were documenting everything. So, did we miss something in between the vanilla bean and the eggs?
Sugar.
You added sugar. You added sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much sugar did you put in? So first we had two eggs or three? 3 eggs. 3 eggs. How much sugar?
120.
120 grams.
Yeah.
Okay. 120 grams of sugar. And you just used regular, just organic white sugar?
Yeah.
Okay. And now we have the insides of 1 vanilla bean.
Or you can use also half of it. It depends if you're a vanilla person or if you're not.
I'm a vanilla person. Are you? Okay, good. Oh, what just happened?
I'm just like putting bit by bit the broth in, and then so like.
This is a vegetable broth.
So what I did is when I saw that the wine cooked and got into the rice, I just added a little bit of broth, and then you just wait until you like when you like do this, you don't see you don't see the broth anymore. And then you can add more broth and then do the same step.
Right. So you're cooking and cooking until, as you say, you get to a point where the broth is absorbed to a particular level, and then you add more broth to it. So that's how the cooking process takes place. And what's interesting is you can do this with pasta, too. You can cook your pasta that way. As a matter of fact, I know in Puglia there's some pugliese pastas that are made that way. I'm sure there's plenty of other places that do it. But it's fun to do pasta in the same style. And what happens is that the flavor just gets really absorbed into whatever the element is, whether it's rice or whether it's pasta or whatever. And I love, that you're doing this. I'm just like really excited watching this whole process. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and one thing, like the most, you have to like be really, you have to pay attention really like much, because you can't let the rice steam?
Stick to the bottom.
Stick, and you can't let the rice boil, because we're not boiling. We're just like baking it. Simmer bit by bit. So that's why we're adding a little bit and then let it vaporize.
Evaporate.
Sorry.
By the way, your English is is superb compared to my Italian. Let's put it that way. Now, but you do have it's a rapid simmer though. It's not a slight simmer. It's a rapid simmer. That's what you're looking for. So you can keep that heat on about medium. That's right. Now, we happen to be using there are so many ways to cook risotto. This is what we'll call a quicker way to do it, because we're using vegetable bouillon as the base. But you can easily, though it's more time consuming, create your own vegetable broth for cooking risotto. And one of the things that you can do to always have some around is you can actually freeze it in ice cube trays or larger containers so that you can take it out whenever you want from the freezer. Some people actually save all their vegetable scraps when they're cooking and put them in a pile for a couple of days, and then they just use them to form the basis of their broth that they make. I don't usually do it that way, but I usually try to utilize, if I end up with a lot of vegetables in the fridge that I need to use up, like carrots and celery, and you can toss everything into it. But you want to be really careful, because that broth is forming the basis of your flavor, right? So you don't want to have a lot of cabbagey things in there, for example. Matter of fact, I wouldn't put any cabbagey things in there in my particular broth. But I love to use carrot, I love to use onion, I love to use garlic, I like to use parsley, and I like to use celery and bay leaves, fresh thyme, fresh basil, fresh oregano, and you just can toss it in. You don't have to, mess with it. Toss it all in there and just let it cook for about about an hour. And when you taste it, a little salt, right? And when you taste it, you want it to taste good, so that this is going to be a great basis for your risotto. So that's important. It's really critical. You don't want a weak tasting broth unless you're trying to show off a different ingredient that you're using in the risotto itself. Like, and quite thinking about it also in relation to what you're doing. If you're doing a seafood risotto, then you're going to make a different type of broth. You're going to use a seafood broth. So if you have shrimp shells, for example, and crab claws or whatever, you can use that to form the basis of your broth. So, all right. So looks like the cake has more eggs are now going into that cake, right?
Yes. So What I did is I broke the other seven eggs into the yolk and the white, and I divided it, and then I put it inside of the mixture. And
Wait, so I just want to understand this. So we had 3 eggs to begin with. Then you took the other 7, and you separated the whites and the yolks.
yeah.
Okay, and then did you add them separately into this?
No, I'm not using the egg whites.
Oh, you're not using the egg whites. You're just using the yolks. I got you. Okay.
With the vanilla, I'm saying a trick right now. So when we used it and we took out like the inside of it, what we can do is we can let it dry over the sun or just dry it, and then by that you just like with like cutting thing, it would make it in powder, and then you would have vanilla powder.
Okay, so you let it dry in the sun, the vanilla bean. You let it dry in the sun until it gets dry, and then you can put it into a blender or some kind of spice grinder and grind it all up, and you have vanilla powder. Or you could also take it and stick it in your sugar. Take that vanilla bean and stick it in your sugar, and then you end up with vanilla sugar. There's another way to use it, but that's a great idea. So this is after you've taken the paste out of it.
And you can actually reuse it every time. Like if you need it, you have milk and you need to make a custard, for example, a French custard, you would use that plus the vanilla bean, because that would release the beans that you didn't scrape, and then you would have the vanilla bean plus the inside of it.
Nice, really nice. So you're beating this for quite a while. Are we looking for a particular consistency?
Until it's very, very fluffy and like very, very solid.
Okay, very, very fluffy and has some good solid texture to it.
Yeah.
So now what are you going to do with all those yolks?
I already put it inside here.
Oh, wait, okay, I got confused. You didn't use the white, you only used the yolks. Yeah. Ah, okay, I think I said it the other way around. So we're using the egg whites, we're not using the yolks. We use 3 eggs with yolks.
No, the other way around. We're using the yolk, not the whites.
Okay, we've got 3 whole eggs. That's at the beginning, right? And then we've got 7
yolks.
7 yolks. Okay, gotcha. All right, glad.
What happened is that I used, instead of 7, I used 6 because it popped into it. It popped, like it breaked into the egg whites, but the taste of the cake wouldn't really change because it's very eggy. So it would just take a bit of like the eggs, like the taste of the egg.
Okay, so wow, look at that. Can we show people? That's beautiful. It's looking custardy. You know, it's really, really nice. Okay, all right, that's great. Okay, call me when it's time for the next step, okay? We're gonna run over to the risotto now. How's it going over here?
Good. I'm just doing the same step.
Right, just continuing to add broth, cooking it, right?
Yep.
And then as you need to. So what do you think, about 20 minutes or so? Something like that?
Usually to cook rice, it just take like 30 minutes, 35.
Really?
Yeah.
I think this is going to cook faster. Want to see? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
This rice usually cooks up in about 20, 25 minutes. Though the heat that you're using is a little bit less, so maybe it is going to take a little bit more time. And what do we have that we're going to finish it with? More butter and Parmigiano Reggiano, huh?
So yeah, when you when you see that the rice, so I'm gonna tell something. When you put the rice in a pan, you have to make sure you have a big pan because the rice get four times bigger after when you cook it. So make sure to have a big pan because then
Right.
Yeah.
That's really important, isn't it? Because you don't want that rice to expand so much that you don't have any room for it any longer, right? That would not work. All right. So
this is right now, but it's not cooked yet because you can feel it's still hard.
You can look at it and see that, right?
Yeah. You can look at it and you can see that they're still hard.
Yeah, the grains are very, very, There's still a ways to go. Let's put it that way. But eventually, this is going to be. Now, I wonder, how do you add the saffron? I'm very interested in that.
So, you actually need to taste, like, when you see that it's not, like, hard anymore, yeah, you just, like, taste it a little bit by little. And when it's getting, like, not cooked, but not hard, like, in the middle, then you add the saffron and you keep on cooking.
Okay, so what do you just put some little threads of it in there, basically? So you.
It's like a powder, a red powder, and you just put it in the middle, and then you just turn.
So this is powdered saffron, and in Italian that's zafferano.
Zafferano.
Okay, so that's what we're going to add to it. So that's beautiful. Okay, so let me just mention that the next live show is Tuesday, April 3rd, because we do this every month on the first Tuesday of the month. And looking forward to seeing you all there. Maybe the weather will be even nicer by that particular period of time. Everybody's going to be a little bit tired. If you're not tired already, you're going to be tired of winter by that time for sure. Absolutely no doubt about that. So, by the way, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that the first recipes that mention risotto alla milanese were in records or in the 1800s. That's basically. But the first mention of rice, I think, goes back to maybe 1300 in Italy. At that time, Sicily, I think, but I'm not. It certainly wasn't a part of what modern Italy is like, now. But that's where, as I mentioned earlier, that's where it was first introduced. So the history of rice culture in Italy goes back, 800 years or so? But risotto alla milanese, maybe only a little over 200 years now. So that's... Oh, you're going to test it?
Yeah.
I'm going to bet you've got another 10 minutes easy.
I know. It's just that...
You want to try?
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're looking for is you're not looking for crunch, but you're looking for al dente, essentially, right?
Yes.
Just like with pasta. You want a little bit of texture there.
Yeah, like, not, like, really soft, but, like, soft with a little bit of hard.
Yeah, a little bit of texture. I found it's interesting that I found that some Italian chefs really like that rice to have more crunch than I do. Let's put it that way. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I feel that's like
I guess we're going to find out because you're going to cook it to where you think it's right.
Yeah, but I feel like if you go in a restaurant, then you ask for risotto alla milanese, and the cook gave you like kind of hard, not like al dente, but I feel like you should probably like ask him to not pay the same amount because like that's not right. That's not risotto because risotto have to be cooked, not hard. Okay, I'm glad for that words of wisdom there. All right, you got your eggs to that certain point. To your mixture is certain.
It's not fluffy enough.
It's not fluffy enough.
Yeah.
But you're still adding lemon zest.
Yeah, to kind of add the texture to it. So yeah.
I got to ask you a question. How long is it going to take to bake this cake?
20 minutes.
Okay, well, I just want you to know that we're hungry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We are really hungry, and I can't wait to taste this. This is really exciting. So, all right. So, and the oven is preheated, right?
Yeah, it is preheated.
So nobody has to worry too much. It's going to go right in there, and don't let anything get in the way of your finishing that cake.
No. Okay. It is at 350 Fahrenheit. Yeah. Okay.
And 20 minutes.
20 to 25 minutes.
20 to 25 minutes. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to see what happens at that point. So, anybody worried? Everybody's voting for 20 minutes. I'm sure that's true, right? Okay. So.
And one thing, you should probably tell the chef because like he will lose money
if he keeps cooking his risotto with too much crunch, right?
And that means he's not paying attention so much.
Okay, right. I'm going to remember that next time. Yeah, chefs can be temperamental. Did you know that?
What?
Are you temperamental when you cook?
What's temperamental?
Temperamental. Are you a little touchy? Do you like people giving you constructive criticism when you cook, or do you prefer that they just say, "Oh, it's great"?
I actually want people to tell me because then I get better and better and better.
Wisdom, right? That's excellent. I find it really. I'm usually very self-assured about my cooking, and so if somebody tells me that they don't like it or they find something that they don't like about it, I usually don't pay too much attention to them. So I need to be more in the mode, in your type of mode, where I can listen to what people have to say, because I'm sure there must be something I cook that's not that great, but I don't know what it is, but I'm sure there must be something. Anyway, does anybody have any questions for these young ladies? Yes. Go ahead. Just yell it out, Nancy. Nobody can hear you, so I have to repeat it. So.
Okay, so
let me ask the question. Sorry, the question is: do you ever use any type of broth other than vegetable broth in risotto alla milanese, right? Or in
risotto alla milanese, you can in every it depends. There's usually different types of broth. There's the classic one, the vegetarian one, the vegetable one, the chicken one, and so many others. But I think for the one risotto alla milanese, you can use whatever broth you want because it's still gonna have it's still gonna take it's still gonna taste there's broth in it.
Yeah, it's gonna have that brothy taste. Now, one of the classic things, risotto alla milanese is served with ossobuco. That's one thing that's classic combination, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, my mom used to make it. She doesn't make it anymore.
Oh, why?
I don't know.
Well, maybe because she has so many kids, she's very busy. That's possibly another reason. But another thing is also bone marrow is another thing that is used a lot in risotto alla milanese. So that becomes even richer than what it already is. That's adding rich to rich. So it's a very interesting preparation. Okay.
I just wanted to know how much of the broth do you add? When do you?
Okay. So how much broth do you add at a time?
At the time, usually you can put one of these.
One or two ladles?
It depends. If you see that the rice it has no broth in it, and it's it's drying, then you actually put more, 2 or 3. But if it's still liquid, but it's the good when you do this, there's no broth and it's still evaporating, then you add 1.
So basically, you want to cover the rice, but barely cover it. That's basically what you want to do, and then you want to keep cooking. Well, like she said, when you go like this in the pan and you see the skillet surface underneath it, then you're good, huh?
What's the total amount?
What's the total amount of broth? It's going to vary depending upon the rice and as the type of rice that you use. But as a home cook, I have to say I just kind of put plenty. I'd rather have more than less, so I don't want to run out. So I start with plenty of broth, and then I don't have to worry about it. But usually if I'm cooking, I'm trying to remember, usually if I'm cooking, say, 2 cups of rice, I have at least 2 quarts of broth, and I'm probably not going to use all of it. I'm going to use most of it. I hope that's right. I'm trying to do that from memory to see. Yeah.
Are you self-taught, or did someone?
So the question was, are you self-taught? In terms of, did you learn all these baking techniques yourself, or did you learn them from someone else in your family or from an outside source?
So this thing came from my great-great-grandfather that passed to my dad and then passed to me. So it's kind of like a family thing that it's passing over the years. And I mean, every year I take pastry lesson in France by this very it's a very special teacher for me because she taught me so many things, and I'm still learning more each time. And I started when I was 9 to do cooking lessons, but it's kind of a thing that I have.
Wow. So what are some of the, you know what? I want to find out more about that, but I think I want you to focus on this because I'm getting really hungry. So where are we? What's the next step now?
We're gonna melt the butter, but you can always do this like as first step. I mean, you can decide.
Okay, I'm going to put this over here for you so that we can get that melted. And then the butter's going to go in, and then what else is going to happen?
So we're not putting it in.
Oh, we're not putting it in.
See what's gonna happen.
Okay, so I'm just going to let you know something, just because I want you to kind of judge that. We're at 50 minutes right now, and Jason's going to pull our plug in another 10 minutes.
Okay,
and
I'm gonna be done.
Okay, perfect. So I know everybody wants to see, so I want to make sure you're okay. We don't have to worry about you, but I know that you want to show us what you're doing. So that's
in just a second. I'm gonna finish mixing with the mixer, and I'm gonna have a sifter mix the cornstarch that it's 100 grams and 120 grams of flour that is mixed with a pinch of salt, and I'm gonna just sift it inside here, making type of movement that you're just gonna see in just a few seconds how I'll do it, because it's very careful, like it's a very thing that you need to be
precise,
because then you would the picks, they're not picks, but they would just like die.
So it needs to be mixed in a particular way so that it expands properly in the oven. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So we're using, what was the mixture of cornstarch again? How many?
100.
100 grams of cornstarch, organic cornstarch, and 110 grams of double O flour.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we've got. So, okay, this is going to be very interesting.
Okay, so I'm gonna add the saffron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how much saffron do you put in here? We have about, what do we have, like 2 cups of rice or 3 cups of rice? 4 cups?
Of rice.
3 cups of rice.
And look how much it is.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah. But you know what? There's a lot of hungry people here, so it's going to be okay.
And usually, for 10 people, rice for 10 people, it could be two
packages.
2 packages. Mm-hmm. For 20 people, 7 or 6.
Wow. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting. Now, I I have threads at home. I guess I have to figure out how that would work. I'm not sure. I think I made risotto alla milanese a long time ago. Oh, I see that. So you've got the. Okay. There we go.
You always put it in the middle, so that after you can
Saffron is such an interesting ingredient. It's can only be picked one time during the year, right? And it's all done by hand. It's quite extraordinary, the amount of effort, which is why it costs so much.
It actually costs like gold. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same amount, because you need about 6,000 flowers of saffron to make the amount needed of saffron, and that costs literally
Wait a minute. You need 6,000. You need the stamens. Thank you so much. From 6,000 flowers to make how much?
I don't know how much, but a flower doesn't really has a lot of it, so.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up, because that looks quite extraordinary. So, all right. So now you're folding in the cornstarch, and that's what's going on?
Oh. Okay, we can put it here.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you. I almost forgot. So what I do is I sift together the mixture, then little by little, and then what I do is I'm gonna show it to everyone.
Okay, I'm just gonna let you do that. I'm gonna have to hold the microphone because I can't put the microphone. You just show everybody, and
in the middle.
We can't hear you, but we'll. Sit down, please. Thank you so much.
And then with the spatula, you turn at the same time the ball. So middle, turning, slowly. Middle turning. Middle turning until you see that there is pretty much none, and then you start again.
So it's all incorporated, essentially. So you're starting in the middle, and then you're turning out and going around the entire bowl, basically. And you're doing that slowly and continuously. One time around the bowl, right? You start in the middle, then one time around the bowl, and then when it's all incorporated, then you start again. You add more of the sifted flour and cornstarch mixture.
And salt.
And salt, right. And it's just a pinch of salt? Is that what?
Yeah. Because salt in every dessert is very important. It just gives more taste to it. Because it could be too sweet, and if you forget to put salt, like I did sometimes, it would be too sweet. But yeah.
Okay, so did you taste this?
Not yet, because it's so hot. But when you add saffron, the way you know that it's like really good and incorporate because it's yellow, and you see when it's all yellow, that means that it went through all of the rice's pieces.
So when it's all yellow, it shows that it's really been incorporated completely into the entire risotto, right? Yeah. Okay. And at the very end, so I just want to make sure. So your Nona has been watching. She's doing everything right? Giusto? See, okay, she's doing everything right, so that's perfect. So how are we doing? It's hot?
A little bit. So we're almost it's almost al dente. And I actually put, there's you just add more. I'm adding more broth. And I think this is my last time that I'm putting my broth. And then when I'm finished, when my rice is cooked, I add Parmesan cheese on the front, on top of the rice, and butter to make it cheesy and
to make it really unctuous.
Yeah.
Whoops. And it'll be, and you do that. You take it off the heat to do that, right? Okay. All right. So that's what we're going to do at the end. So I'm just trying to see where we are time-wise here, so I know what we've got. Okay. So we actually. Anybody have any last words over here, because we're almost at the end? So what is going to happen, Elisabetta, after you incorporate all this flour, cornstarch, and salt mixture?
I am going to take a tiny bowl, and I'm going to put my butter in it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some spoons of my mixture, and I'm going to put it inside of my bowl. Because if we would put the mixture, the butter, melted butter, it would crash everything pretty much.
Oh, very interesting. So you're filling up the bowl with your mixture, the bowl of butter with your mixture, and then once you get enough in there, you're going to then incorporate it into the entire mix? Yeah. Okay.
And make
so would the hot butter essentially curdle everything, or what would happen?
It's kind of like a strange
texture
to it. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So that's why I'm doing.
Okay, so you're just going to add that, and then it's going to go in there, and you're going to mix it easily, I guess, and then it's going to go into a
pan.
Uh-huh.
I think it's 26 of diameter.
Okay.
And I already put the butter and the flour so it won't stick to it.
Okay. So it's a springform pan.
Yeah.
And then it's going to go into the oven at 350 for 20, hopefully 20 minutes, and otherwise 20 to 25.
Yeah. So here, as you can see,
oh yeah,
it's incorporated everything, and it's not anymore squishy and separate molecules that they separate each other, and so it's all incorporated, and then I'm just gonna put it inside of my bowl.
Great. I want to thank you guys, Elisabetta and Carlotta, Forte, Calati. Thank you so much for sharing the time with us, and I'm really excited. I can't wait, and I know everybody here can't wait to try the risotto alla milanese and the torta margherita. right?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you guys so much. You've been watching Great Taste, brought to you by Fairfield Media Center. Thanks to Jason Strong for his engineering expertise, and also to our sponsors, Everybody's Whole Foods and Green Building Supply, for hosting us. Thank you all very much for coming. We'll see you April 3rd.
Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.